We're going to welcome to the show now a Democrat from New York, Congressman George Latimer. He serves on the House Foreign Affairs Committee and Committee on Small Business. Welcome to the show. Nice to see you today.
Nice to see you, Anna.
So first, I want you to take a listen. You've got one of your colleagues, Pennsylvania Democratic Senator John Fetterman, not mincing words when it comes to Plattner. Listen.
All Democrats, we all know that that was Nazi ink, and everyone knows that he said these terrible things online. Being a dirtbag is not authentic. Being a dirtbag is being a dirtbag, and he's just been caught doing and saying all of these things. When you're held accountable, you can say they're lies or they've been weaponized for any of that thing.
So Fetterman is talking about some of the Plattner controversies. We'll put those up in case our viewers are not up to speed on all of that since it's happening in Maine. But Plattner allegedly called rural Americans stupid and racist. He had a Nazi tattoo for 15 plus years, mocked a Purple Heart veteran, downplayed sexual assault and cheating allegations, and they seem to be piling up and not going away. Then you've got Senator Susan Collins, who's an incumbent right now, and she's got a pretty moderate voting record, sometimes voting against Trump and Republicans. So my question to you is, why are Democrats continuing to throw their weight behind Plattner, and will you?
Well, first of all, Anna, it's always nice to see John Fetterman being John Fetterman. He is sui generis, and he's likely to be the one person who will say anything. The Republicans have Rand Paul, so I guess everybody's got somebody. In terms of the race in Maine, and I've been in many political campaigns, I've been attacked for a variety of things over the years. You have to look past the attacks and get to the policies that will make the difference for Maine or for New York or for any other state in the nation. The person versus the person, and also the policies versus the policies. Susan Collins and my Republican colleagues and friends, they're not necessarily my enemies, but they've backed bills like H.R. 1, the big, beautiful, ugly bill that's going to decimate Medicaid. It's going to decimate SNAP programs for people. And when you start to look at, you stand behind those policies, those become, in my judgment, the most important reason for you to cast a vote. I'm not a Maine resident. Maine will decide who they want to have sitting in the Senate. Another 6 years of Susan Collins or Graham Plattner now that he's the alternative. But the question of the policies that you're going to advance. And anytime you watch a campaign that starts to devolve into this stuff, it's generally because the incumbent doesn't have a strong enough record on the policy to win the argument there. So you go after the personality of the opponent.
Look, I hate to even use the word Nazi. I hate the way it feels when it rolls off the tongue. But your party has called the president that word, for years, and made, references to ICE as his secret police and things like that. And so, do you feel like a Nazi tattoo on a Democratic candidate is that disqualifying?
Well, I don't use the word Nazi refer to anything, because what the Nazis did was so unbelievably heinous that there is almost no comparison in world history. So I avoid those words. And I can't sit here and defend what every Democrat has ever said or what every Republican has ever said. What I can say is that a person who has a tattoo, and I'm of a generation that did not get tattooed, the current generation is more oriented to that way, is not as important a statement as to who the person is, as to the policies they're going to advance. And in November of this year, the choice is going to be very simple, Anna. Do you want to continue on the path that Donald Trump has led? He has complete control of the House. He has complete control of the Senate. And with that, there's no accountability for his actions in Iran. There's no accountability for all of the different issues like the $1 billion for the ballroom and the $1.7 billion slush fund. So you're either going to have a two-party system where there's accountability, or you're going to come up with reasons to just say, you know what, I'm just going to stay the course with Donald Trump and the people that support him. I think that's what people are going to look at when they get to October and November, and staying the course will pivot on the economy, not the tattoos. It'll pivot on the price of gas and the price of products that they buy at the store.
Yeah, look, it's really hard to ignore, your gas prices when you do go to fill up and you feel like you can't afford your snacks, and you're trying to figure out ways to skip trips so that you can save money for your family, although gas prices have gone down slightly in the last week or so. But the state of the economy is driving people to the polls. And earlier on this show, I spoke with your colleague, Republican Congressman from Indiana, Rudy Yakam, who defended Republicans' record on the economy. I want you to take a listen to what he said on the economy.
Sure.
We've done a number of things to try to bring down the cost of living and ensure Americans' economic success. And so from my point, I think we've got to go out and tell that story. Americans are still feeling the pain left over from the Bidenomics inflation, but we're working really hard to get that under control and working with President Trump to deliver for the American people.
And you do hear that from Republicans. They continue pointing back to the Biden administration. How are Democrats planning to help American families with rising costs?
Well, it's interesting that every time you're trying to point out something that is a current problem, you want to talk about Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Grover Cleveland, Woodrow Wilson, every other Democrat that ever was. The single biggest thing we need to do is end the unnecessary tariffs that the president imposed. A year ago, he had something he called Liberation Day. I don't know what we were being liberated from. We should have had a deliberation day. But once you impose those tariffs on products across the board, and not just things that come directly from another country, but American-based products that have component pieces in it that are from other countries, you drove the course of consumer products up. Buy a new car, it's more expensive. Buy any kind of electronic product, it's more expensive. So I would say very simply, if the Democrats can repeal tariffs across the board, impose them where they are necessary on countries that are bad players in the marketplace, fine, but not to put them on our allies. Ronald Reagan himself opposed putting tariffs on allies. He made a big speech about that back in the day. So now the current Republican Party is saying they're working for your economic benefit. Fine. What are you doing with these tariffs? The Supreme Court said that they were illegally done. Eliminate the tariffs, and that's a big step toward affordability.
All right, let's switch gears and talk about what's happening in the Middle East, because we've had some breaking news on that overnight while people were sleeping. A new round of strikes and interceptions reported across the Gulf, and it's now raising concerns about a possible deal and how we're going to get there. The Wall Street Journal is suggesting that any potential agreement with Iran could include significant economic concessions from the United States. Let's take a look there at that headline. So what does Iran's focus on economic relief tell you about the pressure this regime is under right now? I mean, they're just bleeding money.
Well, Iran is under difficult economic and political structures from the bombing. There's no question that they've been affected, but seriously. But the absolute control of the Islamic Republic means that the suffering of the individual people of Iran means nothing to the policies of the government. So we're dealing in a situation where they feel they can still outweight the United States, make demands that are frankly unacceptable in order to have peace, because we here in the West need the Straits of Hormuz open. Keep in mind, before we dropped Bomb 1 in February, the Straits of Hormuz were open, and we didn't have these issues at all to deal with. So, when Marco Rubio says that the war's over, well, clearly it's not over. When Pete Hegseth says we're winning, and it's disrespectful Democrats that say we're not winning, well, we're not winning in terms of making any progress on these things. You need a more slower, sober mindset. You need more of a bipartisan foreign policy, Anna. You need the Ronald Reagans to sit down with the Tip O'Neills of the current day and find common ground. You don't have that right now. You have an arrogance. I saw Pete Hegseth in Normandy, where Americans gave their lives 2 generations ago in defense of Europe, and now he's yelling at Europe for what he thinks they should be doing. That's not the America that I was born and grew up in. America is a warm, generous country that works with its allies and has a bipartisan willingness. And we're not doing that now, Anna.
Part of the headline from his script, from his speech that he gave, was that our allies ought to be hanging by us the way that we hang by them, and you can't help but see the parallels there. Thank you so much for joining us to weigh in and argue your side. News for All Americans here on News Nation. Democratic Congressman George Latimer of New York. Thank you.